My name is Olivia, and I am from New York City. When I look back at my life, one moment stands out like a scar burned into my heart. The day my sister's laughter was stolen from her. She was once the happiest woman in the world, glowing with hope, filled with dreams, and believing she had found a man who would walk beside her forever. But life has its way of showing us the real faces behind the masks. And my sister's life became a tragic reminder of how cruel people can be. I still remember the day of her wedding. She was glowing, wearing her ivory gown that shimmered like moonlight. Everyone in the family was smiling, clapping, celebrating. My parents' eyes shone with pride, and I, standing by her side, felt a wave of happiness wash over me. Her groom looked charming, respectful, and soft-spoken. At least, on that day. Little did we know that behind that pleasant face was a man full of greed, control, and cruelty. The first year of her marriage seemed fine. She called me often, telling me about small fights, but also about moments of joy. Every marriage has ups and downs, she would say, trying to convince herself that the cracks were normal. But slowly, the joy faded from her voice. She spoke less and less, and when she did, there was always a tiredness, a heaviness, like her words were weighed down with invisible chains. It was during one visit that I finally saw it myself. She welcomed me into her home, smiling faintly, but I could see the bruises. She tried to hide under her sleeves. Her husband had started controlling every aspect of her life, from what she wore to whom she spoke with. He insulted her cooking, mocked her dreams, and treated her like a servant rather than a wife. The man who had once promised to love her had turned into her prison guard. I wanted to fight for her, to take her back home, but she stopped me. "Don't say anything, Olivia," she whispered. "If he gets angry, it will only get worse." Her words broke me, but I respected her wish, though every part of me screamed for justice. Things grew darker after she gave birth to a son. For a brief moment, I thought the child would soften his father's heart, bring some warmth into their house. Instead, the opposite happened. He became even colder, even more distant. He started spending nights away, leaving her alone with the baby, refusing to help or even provide the love and support she desperately needed. My sister's health declined. Her voice cracked each time she called me, and she admitted once, in a trembling whisper, "I don't think I can survive this, Olivia." And then, the worst happened. One night, I received the call that shattered my world. My sister was gone. Her husband claimed it was stress and illness, but I knew better. She had been drained of her spirit, beaten by betrayal, and crushed under the cruelty of a man who never deserved her love in the first place. That night, I swore I would not let this go. My sister's laughter, her dreams, her life, all had been destroyed. But justice, I decided, would not be denied. Her son, my nephew, was left in the middle of this chaos. The man's family wanted to raise him, but the boy resisted. He clung to me, crying and begging not to be taken to his father's house. I fought. I stood in court. And after months of struggle, I won custody. He came to live with me, and from that day on, I became both aunt and mother to him. Raising him was not easy. He carried the pain of losing his mother, but he also carried anger toward his father and his father's family. "I don't want to be like him," he told me once, tears streaming down his face. "I don't ever want to see him again." His words fueled my fire. I knew revenge is not always about violence or blood. Sometimes revenge is about rebuilding, about rising so high that those who tried to destroy you are left to drown in their own failures. And I had a plan. My sister's son would be the key. Life after my sister's death was like walking through fire barefoot. Every morning I woke up to silence that echoed with her absence. My nephew, I'll call him Ethan here, was just a little boy then. His small hands clung to mine like they were his last anchor to safety. He had lost his mother, and in many ways I had too. The first few months were unbearable. He would wake up crying at night, calling for her. I tried to comfort him, holding him close, telling him that she was watching over him from above. But in truth, his tears burned me from the inside. Each time he cried for her, it reminded me of the cruelty that had stolen her away. Financially, things were no better. I didn't have much savings. Taking custody of a child meant extra expenses, school fees, clothes, food, doctor visits. My own job barely covered rent and bills. There were nights when I skipped dinner so Ethan could eat. Still, I refused to complain. His smile, fragile but slowly returning, became my strength. But the hardest part wasn't money. It was the constant shadow of my brother-in-law and his family. They were greedy, arrogant people who thought the world revolved around their wealth and connections. After my sister's death, they claimed they wanted to raise Ethan. They said it was for his future, but I knew the truth. They wanted to use him as leverage, a pawn to keep control of property and assets that legally belonged to him. Court battles followed. I had no powerful lawyers, no influence. They had everything: money, family connections, and the audacity to twist lies into truths. But I had one thing stronger than all of that: determination. I stood before the judge, voice shaking at first, but gaining power as I spoke. I told them about the bruises my sister had hidden, about the way Ethan clung to me, about the environment of fear and cruelty in that house. It took months, maybe years off my life. But eventually, I won. The judge awarded custody to me. My brother-in-law exploded in anger, his face red with humiliation. But it was the first time I felt like justice had cracked through the darkness. That was just the beginning. Raising Ethan became my purpose. He was the reason I got up each day. I took on multiple jobs, working in an office during the day, delivering food at night, and tutoring on weekends. I rode my bicycle through storms and freezing winters, carrying bags of takeout to strangers' doors. People sometimes pitied me, sometimes ignored me, but I kept going. Ethan watched me closely. He saw my struggles, my exhaustion, my silent tears when I thought he was asleep. And instead of breaking him, it built him. One day, he told me as a teenager, "I'll make sure you never work this hard again." I smiled at him, but deep down, I wasn't working only for survival. I was working for something bigger: revenge. Not the kind of revenge you see in movies, where blood spills and guns fire. No, my revenge was patience. My revenge was building something powerful enough to shatter the pride of those who had destroyed my sister, and I started small. I saved every extra dollar I could. No fancy clothes, no vacations, no luxuries. My life became a rhythm of survival and savings. Ethan helped in little ways, taking part-time jobs when he grew older. Together, we built a bond that was stronger than blood. It was fire-forged. By the time Ethan turned 18, I had managed to start a small business, a food stall selling traditional meals. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and it was ours. Ethan worked with me, handling customers while I cooked. Slowly, people noticed us. The taste reminded them of home, of love, of something genuine in a city drowning in fast food. Word spread. The stall became a shop, then 2 shops, then a chain. Within a decade, I had built a small food company, and behind every late night, every sleepless struggle, was the memory of my sister. Each success felt like placing another stone in the foundation of her justice, but destiny had something darker in store, and something sweeter too. One morning, while reviewing applications for new employees, my manager brought me a file. I opened it casually, scanning the name, the details, and my heart skipped. It was my nephew's father. The same man who had ruined my sister's life. The same man who had once looked me in the eye and laughed as he dragged me through court, battles. He was now applying for a job in my company. At first, I thought it must be a mistake. But the documents were clear. His family had crumbled. His wife had left him, taking whatever wealth she could. His arrogance had driven away business partners, and debts had swallowed the rest. He was jobless, penniless, and desperate. I closed the file, my hands trembling. It was as if fate itself had delivered him to my doorstep. The man who had once stood tall, full of pride and cruelty, was now begging for a chance to work under me, the woman he had once mocked and thrown aside. I leaned back in my chair, eyes closed, feeling the weight of years lift from my chest. This was it, the revenge I had been waiting for, but I didn't shout. I didn't rage. Instead, I smiled. Because true revenge is not about screaming in someone's face. It's about watching them bow their head where once they stood arrogant. The day I saw his name on that application, something inside me shifted. For years, I had carried the weight of my sister's memory, the injustice she suffered, the nights I cried quietly so Ethan wouldn't hear. I had envisioned this man, my brother-in-law, living comfortably, surrounded by wealth, while we scraped by. I thought life had spared him. But no. Fate had been slowly carving away at him, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but a hollow man begging for survival. I didn't respond right away. I let the application sit on my desk for days. Every time I opened the folder, I saw his photo, older now, thinner, eyes sunken. But still I remembered the sneer he once gave me, the way he had called me unworthy, the way he had accused my sister of being weak. I remembered standing in court, his lawyer spitting lies, while he sat in his suit smirking. I remembered the night Ethan woke up crying, asking why his father didn't want him. I remembered the times I came home from deliveries soaking wet, trembling with exhaustion, thinking of how he sat comfortably while I fought to keep his son alive. And now he wanted to work for me. I called Ethan into my office. He was a grown man now, tall and strong, with eyes that carried both his mother's warmth and my stubborn fire. I handed him the folder. He opened it, and the silence stretched between us. His jaw clenched as he read the name. Him, he whispered, almost spitting the word. Yes, I said quietly. For a long time, Ethan said nothing. Then he looked up at me, and I saw the storm in his eyes. What will you do? I leaned back in my chair, my fingers steepled. What do you think I should do? His answer was immediate. Reject him. Throw him out. I smiled faintly. That's too easy, too quick. No, he needs to feel what we felt. The pain, the humiliation, the slow destruction of everything he once held dear. That is real revenge. Ethan didn't speak, but he understood. I invited him for an interview. The day he walked into my office, I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was gray, his shoulders slumped. The arrogance that once clung to him like a crown was gone. He walked with hesitation, like a man already defeated. He looked at me and froze. His eyes widened. Olivia, he muttered. I smiled, calm and collected. Yes, Olivia, please sit. He swallowed hard, sitting across from me. For a moment, he couldn't meet my gaze. Finally, he said, I didn't know this was your company. I nodded slowly. It is. Built from nothing. While you seem to have lost everything. His face twisted, a mix of shame and bitterness. Life hasn't been kind to me. Life? I leaned forward, my voice sharp. Or your choices. He flinched. His hands shook as he tried to answer, but I didn't let him. The years of silence poured out of me like fire. You destroyed my sister's life. You broke her spirit. You laughed while we struggled, while I begged the court for custody of Ethan. You called me worthless. And now, here you are, asking me for work. He lowered his head, unable to speak. For a long time, I let the silence crush him. Then I stood. Do you know what real revenge is? I asked. He looked up weakly. Revenge is not shouting. It's not violence. It's watching the man who once thought he was a king bow his head in shame, begging for mercy from the one he tried to destroy. His lips trembled. Olivia, please, I need this job. I stared at him, my heart torn between fury and pity. Part of me wanted to throw him out, to make him crawl in the dirt outside. But another part of me, the part that had carried Ethan through nights of hunger and storms, knew that true revenge was colder, slower. I handed him a contract. You'll work here, but you'll start at the bottom. Minimum wage, hard labor. You'll do the jobs others refuse to do. You will serve in the company your wife once mocked, the company you thought would never exist. And every time you pick up a broom, every time you scrub a floor, you'll remember, you're working under me. His eyes filled with tears. He nodded. Yes. For the first time in years, I felt a deep calm settle in my chest. Justice wasn't about destroying him. Justice was about making him live every day knowing the tables had turned. That night, Ethan came to me again. Are you sure? He asked. Yes, I said firmly, because the greatest punishment isn't death or exile. It's living every day with the reminder of what you lost. And now, he will live with that forever. Ethan smiled faintly, and, for the first time, I saw peace in his eyes too, because revenge wasn't just mine. It was his mother's. It was ours. The first week he worked at my company, the staff whispered in shock. Nobody could believe that he, the man who once strutted around in expensive suits, who belittled everyone beneath him, was now wearing a janitor's uniform, pushing a mop across the floors. I watched him carefully, not out of sympathy, but because this was my design. He walked with a lowered head, never daring to look people in the eyes. Sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, I caught him pausing, gripping the mop handle with trembling hands, as if the weight of his past pressed down on his chest. I did not offer him comfort. Comfort was what he denied my sister. Instead, I made sure every task reminded him of his downfall. He cleaned offices that bore my name on the door. He served tea to employees who once might have begged him for help. Every paycheck he received was a fraction of the wealth he once wasted without thought. At first, Ethan burned with anger. "Why let him stay here, Aunt Olivia?" he asked one evening. His fists were clenched, his voice filled with the rage of a son still wounded by abandonment. "He doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as us." I placed a hand on his shoulder, my eyes steady. Because true punishment is not about ending him, Ethan. It's about letting him live in the shadow of what he destroyed. Every day he wakes up knowing his son wants nothing to do with him. Every day he works under my command, knowing I am the sister he once mocked. That is the weight he must carry. That is revenge. Ethan was silent for a long time. Then he nodded, slowly, his jaw still tight, but his eyes beginning to understand. Months passed. His face grew thinner, older. The arrogance that once defined him was gone. Sometimes, I wondered if he ever thought of my sister, if regret gnawed at him in the silence of his lonely nights. One evening, as I left the office late, I saw him outside, sitting on the steps with his head in his hands. He didn't notice me at first. His body shook slightly, the way a man breaks when no one is watching. For a moment, my heart softened. But then I remembered my sister's tear-streaked face, the hospital bed, the lifeless eyes that never opened again. No amount of tears could erase that. The next morning, he came to me. His voice was hoarse, almost broken. "Olivia, please, I don't want forgiveness. I just want my son to hear me out. One time." I looked at him coldly. "You had your chance. You had years. You let him believe he was unwanted. You let him cry himself to sleep asking why his father hated him. And now? Now you want to be heard?" "No. That door closed long ago." He bowed his head. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just walked away. The years that followed were a slow unraveling of what little he had left. His health weakened. His body, once strong, bent under the weight of labor. The man who once commanded fear and respect became invisible. Just another worker in the background. And yet, I never let him go. I kept him employed. I kept him under my roof of power. Not because he deserved mercy, but because his punishment was to live with the reminder of who now held control over his destiny. Ethan grew stronger, wiser. He built his own life, his own career, never once needing his father. He became the kind of man his mother would have been proud of, kind, disciplined, and loyal. One day he came to me with tears in his eyes and said, "Aunt Olivia, thank you for raising me, for protecting me, for showing me that revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes it just means justice." That was the moment I realized something. My revenge was not just about making him suffer. It was about restoring balance, proving that no cruelty could ever fully destroy us. The last time I saw him, truly saw him, was in the hospital. Years of exhaustion and poverty had worn him down. He was frail, his eyes dim. When he saw me, he whispered, "I know I can't change the past, but I see now. The greatest punishment isn't what you did to me. It's what I lost myself, my family, my son, everything." I said nothing. I simply looked at him, and he understood. He passed away not long after. When Ethan and I stood by his grave, there was no anger left in me. No hatred, just a strange calm. The revenge was complete, not because he suffered, but because life itself had returned balance. I turned to Ethan, squeezing his hand. "Your mother's spirit can rest now. Justice has been served." And as we walked away, I felt the heavy weight I had carried for so many years finally lift. Because revenge, I learned, isn't fire and blood. It's the slow, steady turning of fate, until the ones who once laughed at your pain bow to the power of survival, strength, and truth.